Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Taylor Apollonia with Habitat Interiors Co. and I'm coming with another replay slash version of a recent event I just held on my website. Your future buyer is ruining your home. Also, as a note, I have two different worksheets that accompanied this event that I'm happy to send to you. One is for homeowners and one is for renters to kind of help you make decisions around whether or not you want to customize your space and how to move forward. Check out the description for directions on how you can access that. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So the premise of today's video is that we're really going to be talking about how your home is a lived experience, not just an investment. And these things can kind of be competing. I want to talk a lot about the lifestyle value of investing into your home and making it either more functional for you or just a better place to live and be. If you're unfamiliar with my work, I have background in both interior design and psychology, so I really like to introduce this well-being aspect into all parts of my design, and we're definitely going to touch on that today as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit of historical and cultural context, debunk some home myths. Then we're going to talk about the financial value versus the lifestyle value, what I was kind of getting at earlier. And there we're going to explore a few psychological concepts. And then we're going to talk about how do we hold our values and our humanity, guiding questions that kind of help you decide whether or not you want to go forward with investing in your home, whether that's you as a renter wanting to paint the walls and not sure how to approach that with your landlord, or do something much bigger like a kitchen renovation in the home that you own. That's a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be discussing today. So let's go ahead and jump into the historical and cultural context. After World War II, there was a major suburban expansion, partially due to GI Bills and other assistance programs to encourage home buying, and partially because of this introduction of the 30-year mortgage. I believe prior to World War II, it was typically a 5-year home mortgage and sometimes a 15-year home mortgage, but the 30-year mortgage obviously really expanded who could actually afford getting into a home at the time. All of these factors really kind of bundled together to create this rise in home equity as a wealth strategy here in the United States. And then some more recent economic shifts that have happened to kind of influence this home as investment or wealth strategy. One, there's the 2008 financial crisis. So there was a lot more of questioning around if this was a good strategy or not, just because so many people lost homes during that time and lost jobs as well, but it really kind of centered around home ownership. Then we also have kind of this era of short-term rentals and Airbnb. So if you could have a second property, being able to get cash flow with that property potentially. We also have a relatively recent home flipping, I don't want to say community, but this idea that flipping homes is really profitable. I know that I definitely looked into flipping homes at one time because there was just so much selling around how profitable it could be. And I think in recent years that's kind of piddled out a little bit. And then for cultural context to really bring a lot of emphasis on investing into your home, we have HGTV kind of doing these major transformations that I think has had a major influence. We also have Zillow Zestimates, which make it really easy to kind of see a range of how much your home might be worth or valued at in this particular moment. Before this, it was relatively difficult to try to get an understanding of how much your home might be worth. You would have to go and hire an appraiser to do that, and it would take time and effort. Whereas now, although it might not be fully accurate, Zillow definitely has this easy way to see how much potentially you could sell your home for. And then the last thing that I kind of want to highlight, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, is this idea of like real estate agents like really pushing this idea of like that we need to make our spaces like a blank space before selling our homes to make them more valuable or desirable. However, all of this like cultural and historical context really kind of like centers profit over people, which is not particularly my jam. If anything, I would rather pick people over profit, but I also want to kind of like introduce today this idea of like, maybe we can have both our lifestyle values and our home values commingle and not be like so either or. Okay, so the first myth that I want to debunk for you is this idea of like the average buyer. We really want to make this home like attractive for the average buyer is what a lot of real estate agents will say, or just paint your whole house white and it'll be better off kind of a thing. But I really want to dissect how like average is very diluted and amorphous, and because of this, like people don't really strive to be average necessarily. Like when we think of a home, we don't necessarily want like the most average home. First, like we would all say that that looks differently. Like we're all in different contexts and locations and class statuses, and so like the average home is like amorphous, like I said. But what are people like actually looking for when they want to buy their house? What did you look for? A place that you could like have some balance in your life, a place that you could connect with people. Maybe you're even looking for it to be like inspirational, or just like comfortable. So like average isn't usually like a term that people like aspire to be, right? And so like I kind of want to de-incentivize like optimizing for some like hypothetical person who like I don't even know. Yeah, just like how well can you actually get to average, and do people actually want average? We live in a pretty like individualistic society here in the United States, and so like it just feels like conflicting to me. I really want to emphasize interact with our homes in a way that like we are placemaking, and when we're doing that, it's really going to be reflective of whoever is in that space. Okay, and to kind of piggyback off of this last one, I want to ask you, out of these two images, which can you easily or more easily envision yourself in? On the left, we kind of have this super blank space, this average space, white walls, nothing really happening. On the right hand, we have, you know, somewhere that seems to be lived in and taken care of. I would assume that most people are going to say the place on the right feels easier to envision yourself in. Maybe it's not 100% your style. Maybe there's something stylistically in the left-hand picture that draws you in a little bit more, but it's really hard to envision yourself actually in these blank slates, blank spaces, that again, most often real estate agents are kind of like pushing us to recreate for the next person. And I think that this can even be debunked with a lot of like real estate agents' advice to like stage your home. And this is because like it's really hard to envision yourself in a complete blank space in like a box, because most of us don't really live this way. And it's also really hard to just even get a sense of like scale. Like at least in this alternative picture, you kind of like get a sense of like, okay, I can tell how big this window is in relation to like the chairs. I want to decentivize like trying to make your home a blank slate, partially because like I don't think that this is super great for the buyer, but it's also not great for us. Like what, like we want to live somewhere that's cozy and comfortable, and probably so does the next person. Okay, this leads me to my next point about that designing to sell is not the same thing as designing to live. I'm using design in this context very loosely. Like, yes, I am a designer, but like also however like you have your space at home, you've designed to some degree, whether it was like super intentional and thoughtful or not. You've still put things together and designed your space. And I want to talk a little bit about an example here. Probably about a year ago here in DC, I was touring a home and touring a home that was for sale, and it was really cute. It was updated a bit, but there was like one major thing that was overlooked, and I don't even know if I would have like caught it immediately. Renovated the kitchen and looked fine. However, they completely forgot to incorporate the dishwasher into the design. And so why it was so obvious is because there was literally a dishwasher sitting in a box in the hallway, pretty much like, yeah, this comes with the house, you'll have to install it and like rip out these new cabinets or put it somewhere, but it comes with the house. And I think that this just like really captures that idea of like designing to sell, not fully thinking through the functionality versus like designing to live. Not that everyone needs a dishwasher. Obviously there's plenty of people in like New York City, for example, who don't have a dishwasher, and other places too. But they really like overlooked this idea. And I think that this happens a lot when we're not designing to live, but it's really sad and silly because someone is going to live there, right? Like, or hopefully someone is going to live in that space. The next thing that I want to talk about is this idea of value and desirability and how they are not the same thing. So if we rewind the clock back into the last handful of decades to look at different design styles, we will see sunken living rooms, which are, you know, really cool to some people like me and not as cool to others. So yeah, we have a bunch of different, what we might call now trends. So sunken living rooms, Tuscan kitchens, kind of like a boho chic style. And these things come and go. Like I said, I'm kind of a fan of the idea of a sunken living room, but you might not be. I don't care as much for a Tuscan kitchen, and someone out there probably does. And this is all under the umbrella of like desirability. These homes aren't necessarily less valuable when they have these older styles in it, but they probably have less desirability for some people. A lot of times in the US, we equate new to like good condition. We also kind of think as old as not as good condition, even though a lot of these older things are of higher quality. So there's kind of like some interesting generalizations happening here with old and new. To kind of talk about this designing to sell, designing to live, desirability versus value, I want to bring in another example from probably about almost to the day actually, 5 years ago. I was on site at this pretty large custom home in Park City, Utah. This family had probably around like 4 small children. One was like a newborn or like very, very young. We were going through the house, making sure everything was in order. And I remember the wife going really back and forth on whether or not she wanted a bathtub in the primary suite. And, you know, someone who loves baths, I thought this was like kind of crazy because like it was gonna be a beautiful design. It was gonna be right in front of this window, and it like really kind of like completed the room. Otherwise, it kind of just like there's a lot of dead space. And also they had many young children, and there was no other bathtub in the house. They were all, you know, like curbless showers. Anyways, I think that she decided to go forward with the bathtub, and I just told her like, I think that's a really great decision. Even if you don't feel like you really reuse it, it'll be good for resale value. Now I'm rolling my eyes at, but at the time, like, I don't know, it just felt like a thing to say. I didn't really fully think it through. And this woman was so mad at me. She was like, I'm designing, you know, a multi-million-dollar custom home, and whoever gets it after me, like, they're bound to dislike something. So like, yeah, I don't really give a shit if it's the bathroom or if it's the bathtub, and which is a completely fair critique. And I felt really dumb, and I shut up after that because she was totally right. She was thinking about her lifestyle, which she should be, and I should have been doing as well. And to a degree, I think I was, but I could see why that was kind of a shitty thing for me to say. And now she has me thinking differently, thus this event and today's video. However, I also want to talk about how this might show up for renters. So a lot of people are really scared to paint or like to damage walls significantly. And there's kind of like this weird, you're living in someone else's space, but this is still your space. And I think that for some people that is like really uncomfortable to kind of like advocate for some design needs you might want or need. You are paying for the space, and so I do want to encourage you to make it your own. So we're going to get into how financial value is measured, specifically when you go to sell your home, when you get your home appraised. So I wanted to divide this into two different categories. One of things that are out of your control, and the second of what is in your control. So I'm mostly just going to talk about the first three things. So the very biggest influence on your home value is the location of your home. Now, you had control of this when you purchased your home, but now that you're living there, you don't really have control over this. So this accounts for potentially like 50% of your home value. And we kind of intuitively know this because we know, like, if you buy one home in the middle of Nebraska to buy the exact same home somewhere else, like Los Angeles, for example, you're going to be looking at two extremely different price points, right? So we know this to an extent. But I really want to highlight this because I think that it kind of gives us a little bit of relief and weight off of our shoulders to know that, like, okay, that is kind of unchanging. There's still a lot of my home that I can manipulate, but like potentially 50, maybe even more of my home is determined by location. So maybe I don't need to work so hard in figuring out, cracking the code to make it more valuable. The second thing that influences your home value here in the US is square footage. We have this idea that bigger is better, and so that means more valuable. And here in the DC area, it's pretty common for folks to have additions on their homes. People usually stay here for a long time and are not as interested in moving, whereas like where I'm from in Salt Lake, home additions are less common, and people will generally just like move to a new home. You can change the square footage of your home, but that's usually a very big project, one that I would love to help design with if you would like additional assistance. But again, like, square footage isn't the thing that necessarily everyone is going to consider when reselling their home. And it will add value to your home, but you're not going to add square footage just for resale value most of the time. That really leads us to the third largest thing that influences your home value, which is the general condition of your home. What does this mean? How well maintained is your home, essentially? And there's so many things that can fall under how well maintained and the general condition of your home. I'll just leave the list on top of my face so I don't have to go through them all. But this is the area that I really want us to emphasize today, because I think this is where we can get a lot of lifestyle value while still keeping in mind financial value as well. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the lifestyle and what kind of psychological processes. So I want to talk a little bit first about place attachment. If you're familiar with relationship attachment styles, it's the same idea of like how we are connected to certain places. Places usually offer us a certain amount of security, which lead us to relaxing more and being able to restore when we feel fully held, when we feel secure, when we feel safe. That is going to help our nervous systems, which often can lead us to like more socializing, whether that's inside or outside of the home. And this all leads to further belonging. Our homes are places of belonging, and a lot of us want our homes to reflect potentially the relaxing piece, potentially the socializing piece, but belonging really showcasing who we are, what we value, and how we want to spend our time. This leads us into another area of psychology called environmental identity. This is all about having the autonomy to have our space reflect, reinforce these different aspects of our individual or our collective identity. So if you're a part of an organization, if you're a part of, like, you love a certain genre of music or movies, it could be a number of different things, but having our space reflect those things and having the autonomy to do so is really going to fuel comfort for us, help to lower our levels of stress, but also increase our levels of rest, creativity, intimacy, focus. When we have the autonomy to really shape our space, we are able to access these different psychological and emotional needs that we have as human beings, which dovetails really nicely into the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're really talking a lot about the personal security, but a lot of like the social aspects as well. And these things fuel these higher levels of the hierarchy of needs, like esteem and self-actualization as well. How do we hold our values, whether that's financial or lifestyle, with our humanity, and what does that look like in our homes? So think about something that you've been holding back on doing in your space. Maybe it's a small project, maybe if you're renting, it's painting. It could be a variety of different things, right? I want to introduce 4 questions to help guide whether or not we should go forward in a project. For the very first question, if there is no financial gain, and often there is financial loss that comes with doing these things, right? Usually we are spending money to improve our spaces. Is it still worthwhile? Feels like a very basic question, but I think it's very worth asking, because it might not provide financial gain. It might provide emotional support, bring some ease into your life. It might help you being able to host in your house. There's so many different things that could really fall under value or a gain, even if it's not monetary, right? Another example that I want to pull out is I've been doing a lot more thinking around aging in place and how to design homes with aging in place in mind. I just actually wrote an article, I'll link it below if you're interested. A lot of designing for this purpose of aging in place is not really going to have a financial gain, not a lot of financial value, but what it will offer is comfort, safety, and functionality that supports independence for people who are hoping to stay in their home as long as possible instead of going to some sort of care facility. That is a very worthwhile design decision for a lot of people who want to continue living in their homes. If the answer to this first question is yes, you can still ask these additional questions. This might be the only question you really need to ask yourself if it's yes. If it's no, we continue. The second question that I would pose to you is, does this solution, design, whatever project, does it make your life or taking care of your home easier? Does it help you access some form of ease? And the reason I ask this is, 1, because it's nice to have our lives be a little bit easier. But 2, specifically, if it makes taking care of your home and maintaining your home easier, that could influence one of these 3 major factors of your home value, which is the general condition. If it makes it easier to clean your home, if it's easier to generally like have things put away and tidy, any way that it makes your home easier and can assist in maintaining your home is going to contribute to some degree to the condition of your home, and that in turn can significant factor to your home value. If you've said no to the 2 last questions, then we'll move on to question 3, which is, can it be reversed in a weekend? The very easy yes side of hanging up art. All you gotta do is patch up some holes. That can be done in a couple of hours even. Or if you're looking to do a full home addition, what would it look like to reverse that? Probably tearing down that addition or potentially the whole house. So definitely not very easy to do within a weekend. Something that might be a little harder to put your finger on is if you were to install concrete countertops. And I'm mostly just inserting this here because I want to warn folks of concrete countertops. Because when you install concrete countertops, you have to remove those, you can't just demo the countertop. It usually also involves taking out the cabinetry or demolishing the cabinetry. You might be able to do this within a weekend, but it would maybe be a little difficult. So that's where it might get kind of muddy. So can whatever proposal that you have, solution that you have, be reversed in a weekend for you or for someone else, right? Like, hopefully you don't want to reverse your design decision, but if someone else were to move into your space and want to reverse it, how much effort would that entail? Reflect on which questions you said yes or no to. If you said yes to number one or and more, then pretty confident that you should go forward with what you're wanting to do. If you said no to all these questions, I don't know if it really makes sense for you to move forward as of now. And that might change in the future, and that's okay. However, I think it's just good to kind of identify, like, what are the reasons that I'm wanting to change my space? And these questions might help you figure out how worth it is for you. I'm hoping that by renovating or just personalizing your space, especially like if you're a renter, is something that helps fulfill your human needs. Whether it's functionally or emotionally, having a place that offers security, relaxation, connection, socialization, belonging, all these things are valuable. Psychological needs are getting met, your human needs are getting met, and that is valuable. So if you've been looking for a permission slip, perhaps, to enhance your space, enhance your living, enhance your lifestyle, then I hope that this kind of was a good guide. Designing for yourself can take priority, and how thinking about a hypothetical person, a buyer, might make it harder for you to connect with your space. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you found it helpful. Again, check out the link in the description if you're curious about either the renter or the owner's worksheet that accompanies this event. As of now, I haven't, like as of recording at least, I haven't planned any events yet. But if you've been interested in attending these, because I guide you a little bit more through the thought process, then please sign up for my newsletter. I'll link that down below as well. That's the easiest place to know when I have a new event. Unsure when my next video will be. I suppose I will see you whenever I create something new.